So with confidence and aplomb I said we're back after technical problems, and then another problem cropped up. This isn't, I want to stop doing this where it's not like poor old me or anything like that, but it's kind of, things need explaining at times, don't they? A friend had an accident and it's worth explaining very, very quickly. Here, see, I'm doing this on lined paper for a reason. Here is a wall. There is the ground. Can you see that? Come on, should have got a bigger pen. There's the wall. There we are. And there's the ground. Tufts of grass. And the ground is still wet from all the bad weather we've been having. It's not really dried out. Great. So my mate put a ladder up. And then, well not and then, Andy had a thing to hold the ladder, because he's very conscientious like that. And then he climbed the ladder, and he was about there, stick man, waving. And the ladder, well, this, the retaining thing, he purchased it, it's an official object, I can't think of the word. That sunk in the ground at the apex, flipped like that, and the ladder slipped like that. And you think, right, oh crikey, he fell off, but it gets worse, kind of. Here is a retaining wall for a flower bed, so all it did was slide that far and then sit at that angle, right? During which time he, funny thing is, you kind of go at an angle, he went like that and made contact with the ladder. And in fact what he did was, he slipped between the rungs. Let's say that's a rung there. And let's say that's a rung there. So he slips between them, and then because your hips are quite wide, you jam. And the positive is that you don't hit the ground. There's your foot, there's your leg, there's your hip, there's your body, there's your head, because you're a man with big feet, still waving. Sounds great, doesn't it? But what happened was, it's a metal ladder. He goes through, bends the ladder outwards, if you see what I mean. The two parallel sides of the ladder are now bent. He's wedged in it at his hips, and you compress your spine. So I said, oh, his wife's running to and fro, and so on, as you would. He's in hospital, having all kinds of scans, then in for a couple of days for observation, then more scans, because the jolt can have an impact on the top of your spine where it meets your skull. So I said, alright, I'll look after the kids for a little bit, and I'll look after your animals for a lot longer. And this ended up being nearly 5 days, I think. And so I've been doing that, which is marvellous of me. What a wonderful person I am. But the reason I mention this is because this happened to my dad, which is why I know so much about it. Back at the end of the 80s, he was doing a bit of DIY, and exactly the same happened. And he has slightly crushed his pelvis inwards. He has damaged the base of his spine where it meets the pelvis. He's compressed his spine slightly. He's a couple of millimetres short, nearly 5 millimetres shorter than he was, which then causes you spinal problems. It's then damaged a couple of nerves. So my dad now has tingling, pains, numbness and all sorts in his left arm. And it crushed the last vertebrae before his skull, and now there's a build-up of calcium which is going outwards, and when he turns his head you get an almighty click. It sounds awful, but it's going inwards and it's pressing on the nerves. So my mate had all the scans and they started talking to him, then I went to see him and he said, oh God, there's going to be long-term problems here. And I rattled off that list of things. He said, God, it's like you read my mind. I said, no, it's more like I read your medical notes, because I knew it already. So that's what I've been doing. Thought I'd mention it because it's so strange that it happened to my mate and my dad. And also worth mentioning, these things happen in threes, don't they?